Open your eye. We're fine. Too good. The right one. Hey, turn around, please.
Okay, welcome. Welcome everybody to our September Shop Talk with U.P.B.C.A, the United Professional Barbers and Cosmetologists Association Incorporated. We're joined here with some of our members of our association, as well as some of our guests that are here with us. We have our special guests that are with us that my name is Willie Lightfoot, president of the U.P.B.C.A, joined with some of our members, Aretha, Johnny Scott. We have some of our other guests, Patricia Williams McGahee, Jonathan Thompson, all the way from Florida, and our vice president, Wade Davis. We're going to move along today with this discussion on COVID-19, mental health and substance use. I'm going to turn it over to our host, Wade Davis, who's going to introduce our guest, and we're going to try to have a very robust conversation today for a very needed topic. Before we get started, we'd like to take a few moments of a moment of silence for the Daniel Prude family and all those who have lost their lives, especially those over the past weekend to the senseless violence that we had in our community. So if you join me, please, ladies and gentlemen, for a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, I turn it over to our Vice President, Dr. Master Barber, School Extraordinaire Teacher, good friend, great man of God, Dr. Wade Davis. You're muted, sir. Unmute yourself, Doc.
I'm really excited about our topic tonight, as well as our guests. The times that we're in right now, I think this is a viable topic on tonight. We have some wonderful guests with us. I'll leave it up to them to give their credentials and things of that nature. We have Mr. Steve Fugel, and we have Mr. Kennell Ferguson. Actually, these are some co-workers of mine from one of the other hats that I wear. And I'll let them introduce themselves fully and properly at this time. Let's start with you, Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Fugel. I'm the mental health therapist at the Rochester Educational Opportunity Center. I also am an adjunct lecturer at Nazareth College, and I'm pursuing my doctorate at UB right now in social work.
Oh, great. Mr. Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm Kennell Ferguson, one of the counselors here at REOC and Male Initiative.
Okay. All right. So listen, I want to get right to this because, time is of the essence. Not that we have to cut off at any time because U.P.B.C.A is well prepared, but we want to make sure that we don't hold people long. We know we have busy lives and people have other things to do. We've been given some pre-questions that I would like you, Mr. Steve and Mr. Kennell, to touch on for us, right? And then hopefully at the end of this presentation, we'll tie it into how this is really affecting the appearance enhancement professional, okay? Which U.P.B.C.A, United Professional Barbers Cosmetologists Association, represents, okay? Mr. Fogel or Mr. Kennell, whoever is first, is this really the new norm? Is this all that we going? Is this really the new norm?
I can speak to that. It's a term that in therapy we usually use for a permanent change, such as someone who's in a car accident or, they became paralyzed, or someone who's in another accident loses a limb. So I know that term new normal is being thrown around a lot these days in regards to the pandemic, but I myself don't like it because words have a lot of power, especially to our subconscious, and to call this a new normal is giving it too much power because this is not a permanent state. This pandemic's going to end. The mask wearing, the social distancing, the not being able to travel and do all the things we want, it's going to end.
Mhm.
We know this, science tells us this. This isn't going to last forever. So what I call it, I try to reframe it as normal for now. You know, by changing the way we talk about it, we can kind of subconsciously change the way we react to it. Normal for now is a more gentle reminder to our subconscious that this pandemic and the challenges it brings, they're not going to be forever.
Okay, very good, good. Mr. Cannell, anything you want to add to that? You're muted.
Yeah, the norm that how we have it now, seeing the mask and the anxiety, the people's, keeping distance and just the whole lifestyle, it's a big change and an adjustment, and people are now saying this is going to be the new norm. But from a mental health perspective, I respect what Mr. Fool is saying. Um, Looking at it from my perspective, it is kind of scary, and I'm just being real. It's going to be something that we're going to see lingering on for probably another year and a half, two, before our regular lifestyle settles in, how we socialize, how we go around the communities and so on. So, I don't want to say this is the new norm, but it's going to be an adjustment. It's going to be an adjustment. It's going to take some time, and I know we're going to get through this, and with the proper support, resources that are in the community, we're definitely going to see a brighter light at the end of the tunnel.
And I gotta agree. I gotta agree with both of you guys. I really do. I gotta agree with both of you guys. As you said, Steve, I don't really want to succumb to what we're going through, and don't think it can get close to what we used to have. So I think that you both have hit on some very good points with that. But being a appearance enhancing professional, dealing with people every day, as we all do on our different jobs, what I think some people really want to know is what are some of the signs and symptoms that COVID-19 is really affecting my mental health? What can I look for?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think when we think about mental health, we tend to think the main things, the more common issues like anxiety. And we all know that kind of feeling where we feel a heaviness in our stomach, we might sweat or feel dizzy. And then also another common illness that's on the rise right now, depression. We might be used to recognizing that as like a deep sadness, talking slowly, moving slowly, losing motivation to do things. But this is a little different because both of these illnesses have some symptoms that are less common. And for instance, they can both cause extreme irritability. So if you're feeling very irritable, you may think it's just due to the circumstances, all the stuff we're going through, when in fact you might be suffering from anxiety or depression. So I always say it's good to get checked out, see a professional for a professional diagnosis and a treatment plan, which a lot of the time doesn't need to include medication. There's several non-medicinal interventions that help you feel better.
Okay. Anything, Mr. Ferguson?
No, I agree with Mr. Fogel, and he is the
Okay.
mental health professional, so definitely what
Okay.
he is absolutely
Okay.
with that.
Okay. And you know what? And I think that it's very important that as professional, whatever field you in, that we can recognize these signs, not only in ourselves, but in our clients, the people that we dealing with in the barbershop or salon, people we dealing with, even in church. I mean, we know that's a place of healing, and that's a place where people are sick everywhere. People are really sick everywhere, and it really affects other communities more so than it does others. Do you have insurance? A lot of things play into that, poverty and so much other things. So thank you for that, Mr. Fugel. But one thing that I've noticed, I think that during this time of period, substance abuse seems to be on the rise during COVID-19. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so the official research is still out there because even though we've been at this for over 6 months in the United States, which seems like a really long time to us, is for research to catch up with that, it's going to take a while. But I think we all know people, we know enough people in our community that, yeah, whenever there is added stress in anything, we're going to see an increase in substance abuse in those that have never abused substances before, and certainly in those that have past substance abuse issues, is that they're at a higher risk. And this is something that we've seen in the past, all the way going back to the Great Depression, people abusing alcohol back then, and then in more recent times, after 9/11, substance abuse was prominent, and then even more recent, the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, that some would say that we're still recovering from. Certainly, substance abuse was on the rise and still is. I mean, it's quite apparent from the opioid epidemic.
And many times, some of these substances that people are using, it has changed from when I was coming up. There's some stuff out there that I would advise nobody to put into their body. Man-made, no good, So I can understand that. I guess because we're stressed, we're strained, we can't get out, right?
Add to that, to add to the stress, one of the things that I'm talking to some of my friends in the community, and it's saying during the lockdown, like one of the most or the main thing that they could get readily is the liquor. They got the liquor stores open, and that's a go-to escape for a lot of people. Like, I'm locked down, I'm pinned down for months, nothing to do. Let me go try and get my mind at ease. And people don't know how to cope with it. People don't have coping skills to deal with the anxiety and the stress. A lot of people quickly go towards the closest thing to them, which is a liquor store, which is everywhere. You know what I mean? So they do that, and it can simply and quickly spiral to a downward trend. Remember, alcohols are depressant, they're downers. Drinking that, you get that nice, relaxed, cool, laid back feel, and it feels good, and it kind of puts your mind at rest, and that's what you do it, and that spiral keeps going, and then you feed into an abuse for the substance. And that's one of the big things I've spoken to a lot of people, and they're still fighting with it up to this day. Even though the state is slowly opening back up, they still have that tendency to end the day with a drink. It's still lingering, even though people kind of slowly working, and it's something that they definitely might have to go get help with the agencies around the city to get help with the substance of alcohol.
And with this substance abuse, as Dr. Robinson placed in our chat, it leads to other things, assaults, domestic violence, as Dr. Robinson has put out, and they're probably going to be leading us to our next question, which is this: what are the psychological how does COVID-19 affect families and strains relationships? And if anybody else have any other thing they want to say, you can unmute yourself after our guest has his say. So how does COVID-19 affect families and strain relationships?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought up domestic violence because absolutely that's on the rise. We were seeing that on the rise before the pandemic was coming. So definitely, I appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, so it affects families in looking at, mental health being strained, at substance abuse being on the rise. It has a direct impact. We've also got this added stress, a lot of us who have children who are learning remotely or they're learning in a hybrid model, which is putting a lot of strain on families, parents to, be more involved in that school day than they have time for. And, you've also got people who've lost their jobs, adding another layer to that stress for the family. So there's just so many factors playing into this, and it's putting the risk for domestic violence very, very high. And yeah, it's a very important part to talk about.
Thank you. So with that in mind, is there a difference in the psychological effects on children versus adults?
Yeah, so I think, with our children, of course, we know that our children that aren't going to school full time, that's kind of going to have the biggest effect on them. They're missing out on a lot of socialization that they were used to getting in school. And I think that's their biggest impact. I think they have less anxiety and depression surrounding this pandemic because they feel like adults have things figured out or figure things out. They don't know yet that we're all just pretty much winging it all the time, but especially when it comes to something we have never had to deal with before, like the pandemic. So I think the adults feel this added pressure to act like things are fine and normal. And that's not always the best way to go about it. Sometimes, you certainly want to censor what you say around your children, but it's okay to tell your children, things are a little stressful right now. You don't have to try and sugarcoat everything and make it seem like there's nothing going on. But definitely, I think there's a lot of stress on parents.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too. I'm glad you mentioned that, Steve, because being truthful with our kids, because when you leave it up to them to assess what they see, you see what I'm saying? They might think that is for a whole different reason. They don't understand why mommy and daddy is having
Right.
issues right now, with all this other stuff, because not only are we locked in, not only are we stressed out, not only can we not socialize, not only can we not do a lot of things, and that's putting stress on, but they still have bills. They still got to go to work. They still got to make sure, and now they have the extra added thing of making sure their kids are safe and taken care of while they at work.
Mm-hmm.
So this COVID thing has really taken us in a loop. It really has taken us in a loop. But I think that I've always thought that there's some good in COVID too. I like to look at the glass half full or half empty, however you want to say it. But there's some good too, and I think that in order to get through it, we have to just try to manage. Which leads me probably to my next question. Because if I'm anxious and I'm scared about COVID, right? Because that could be stressful enough, along with all the other things we have to deal with on a daily basis. What can I do? I mean, really, what can I do? I know the patent answer, and I know this work, prayer. I know that work. But what are some other things that we can do, if you could share with our audience tonight?
Sure. I think it's almost, as the same as prayer. You're reaching out, but we need to reach out to each other as well. And you're talking about kind of silver linings, and I absolutely agree that we have some silver linings in this pandemic, and one of them is that we've been blessed with so much technology, like the technology we're using right now,
Mm-hmm.
to come together and connect when we have to be socially distant, physically distant. This is kind of a huge silver lining for me, because I'm thinking back, we had the pandemic of 1918, and I can't even imagine how much worse it was back then, with no way of getting in touch with friends and loved ones and worrying about health. And, they didn't have the updates of how many infections or the infection rate, so I think we've really been blessed with this technology that we can reach out to each other, not in the ways we want to. I mean, I would love to just go give somebody a hug, but until we can do that again, we have this technology that's just amazing. So my number one piece of advice is to reach out. Don't let yourself become isolated and alone, because reaching out right now is the most important thing.
Mm.
Right.
Mr. Lightfoot, go ahead, Mr. Ferguson.
Yeah, just like what Mr. Fool is saying, reaching out definitely to friends and families. You can't leave them out the loop. And again, we're blessed with the technology. I remember when we just hit the shutdown, and I'm just learning about the Zoom. What is Zoom? Like people saying go on Zoom, and then I saw my wife with this screen with a lot of squares in it. I'm like, how you did that? And then I'm seeing her family on the screen. I'm like, hold on, y'all having a discussion on the computer? Like this was March, April. Man. I'm like, so just like you say, you're forced to use the technology at the time when it was dire, right? At the prime, at the peak of the pandemic. And that was like the only way we could have seen each other. So yeah, definitely. It's like what you said, it's like the COVID is a blessing and a curse.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of countries. I'm from the islands in Jamaica, man. And listen, my dad died. The whole country shut down. I couldn't fly back home. I couldn't bury
Mm-hmm.
my dad. I haven't seen. I'm still in disbelief at this moment because I don't see him. I can't see him, and I can't put my mind at peace to say yes, he's gone. I can't see him in the coffin. I'm still in disbelief. So my thank God for the technology. It's the only way I could have got some closure. A live Zoom at the funeral gave me a little bit of a peace inside, saying, "All right, there he is, my old man in the coffin." And this was
Yeah.
April, man. Nobody going anywhere. So the technology definitely has a plus. I know it can linger on and it can get you kind of edgy, like, all right, I'm tired of looking at the screen. I completely understand how these kids feel right now, these young minds sitting around the screens all day. And that's where as parents and grown-ups, you gotta find a way to let them, get it out. And when they come home, when you come home in the evenings, man, get a pen and paper, let them draw something, let them write, let them tell you about the day. I know, we have our days rough, it's busy for us grown ups, but just sit down, have a discussion with the kids, man. Have a
Right.
discussion with them, let them talk it out. It's just again when the COVID hit, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and at that time we didn't know what this was. We know it was a really bad virus, and we had the mask wearing, and my kid would ask me, "Why are you wearing a mask?" So I said, "Well, it's a really bad flu going on," I said, "and we got to be careful." So I let them know, but I didn't want to scare them too much at the same time. I got to be
Okay.
age sensitive. 4 6 year old, you don't want to drive too much fear in them so they can't sleep and living in fear and anxiety. So you got to,
Okay.
it's all about the age of your children again. But I think as parents, grown-ups, if you have a household that has children in it, you need to have discussions centered around the age group. Have a discussion with them before they go to bed, because there's a lot going on in their mind that we can't see or know until you ask them, "How was the
Right.
day? Son? How was the day, daughter? How was the day, cousin? Tell me what you learned at school. What's going on?" Have that
Mm-hmm.
discussion with them, age sensitive, and you'd be surprised at how when they start talking, they talk. They talk.
Mm-hmm. You're
And
right.
be ready
You're
for
right
some.
about it. Mr. Lightfoot, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wade. I just wanted to pose a question to both Mr. Fugel and Mr. Ferguson. It's got a two-part question. We kind of are living in two pandemics right now. There's COVID-19, and then there's the racial inequity that we're dealing with in the civil unrest that's going on in our world today. And even here more locally than we've seen in the past. Normally, we're used to looking at the TV and seeing other cities going through massive civil unrest. But here we are with our city that we live in right now, Rochester, New York, going through a tremendous civil unrest. And then we also are seeing, things about our young people experiencing around the violence that we're seeing in our community. And we talk about PSTD with veterans of war and with people that are involved in civil service, whether they be EMS workers or firemen or police officers or whatnot. But the sense that a lot of our people in our communities, in our neighborhoods, are suffering with PSTD from the violence that they've been seeing in our community. So I wanted you to kind of speak to part one, which is the two pandemics that we're experiencing, how that impacts mental health, and then when we were talking about youth, and as Mr. Ferguson was talking about children and young folks, what can we what do we do? How do we help these young people that have experienced these massive images and terror and trauma from the violence that they've seen in our community? What kind of advice do you give to parents? What type of advice do you give these young people as to next steps on moving forward in our community, getting to a place of healing and being healthy as we talk about mental health and substance use?
Those are great questions. I'm just going to say a couple things, and I'll let Mr. Ferguson kind of take it. But you're right about the two pandemics, and also this COVID-19 is also, the research shows that it is more severe illness and more deadly to minorities than it is to white folks. So there's that, and then there's the police brutality and the killing, the murder of Daniel Prude, and now we've got two young people killed in a mass shooting. Certainly, it's a colliding of pandemics for the Black community for sure. And I'll let Mr. Ferguson talk more about that. As far as kids, I think Mr. Ferguson was making a good point about it really depends on the age, of the children, how much you want to share with them about what's going on. We don't want to scare them, but at the same time, they're seeing the images, with all the technology out there. All they have to do is log on to a iPad or, see something on YouTube. And so we need to kind of always be aware of what they're consuming as far as what they're seeing, and then going from there and explaining it in ways that they can understand without scaring them. Also, with letting them know that we're in control. Like we've got this. You know, we don't ever want our children to think that we don't got this. We want them to feel safe, even if we don't. You know, because like I said, as parents, those of us who are parents, there was no manual that came with the kids, and we're pretty much winging it all the time. But we want the kids to think, you know, we got this.
Right.
Thank you.
For the discussion with the children, definitely. I believe you can have discussions with your children about what's going on. Again, age sensitive, age appropriate. Let them know the reality of what it is that's going on. We're living in a time where still we got tensions and we got people who can't see everybody as equal. Everybody, you can't see people having a level playing field across the board. You got to have these discussions with them and let them know as well that they are the generations that can promote change in this. They are
Mhm.
the ones that can lead this to stop. They can make it stop. So they have to start that discussion with them within the house. It starts within the home. If you start that discussion within the home, you'll be surprised how fast it spreads, and let them know that they are the change, they are the future, and they can implement change and see and have this thing brought down to some level of respect where everyone is treated equally. Everyone is seen not just for the contents of the skin. So they gotta really have that discussion, and I think if we do that, and I'm ready, I'm getting ready for when I have to do that with my kids. Um,
Mhm.
I gotta take it serious, and the question is going to come up. It says technology is there, they're going to see it, it's in the history book, and the discussion will come. So I urge everybody to just have that discussion with your children.
I think just a
Um,
quick example. Sorry, I used to work in an elementary school, for kids with special needs, and it's such a delicate balance of how we talk to our children about the world issues, but we definitely need to, because they're not gonna understand it unless we can explain it in a certain way. And just an example of that is, I'll never forget when Donald Trump won the election. I went into work the next day, and I had an 8-year-old African American boy come into my office, crying, saying that he didn't want to be sent back to Africa. You know, so
ah,
even though that wasn't even on the table, that wasn't something that could be done. You know, just he had been hearing so much about Donald Trump and how he,
mm,
wanted to send people back to their countries. You know,
Yeah.
so it's really important that we find that delicate balance so that we don't have kids worried that they're going to be sent to another country, but also, feeling safe.
yeah. And I just want to say, I think, Patricia, you're exactly right when you said there are political, economic instability, and racial unrest that adds to as an additional stress and level of uncertainty. And Jonathan asks this question. He says, is it more deadly to African Americans? However, is that the case due to the fact that healthcare is often inadequate in Black Americans, which ultimately highlights a bigger issue? And I'd just like to say before anybody could jump on that is that I love that about President Obama. I think that he was a visionary and seeing the fact that universal health care for everybody was a plus. Canada has it, other places. It was a plus because we have people walking around here with just the issues that we're talking about, mental issues on these streets, on these corners, in some of these schools. People are dealing with mental, but they can't really get the adequate help because they don't have the necessary resources financially, you know what I'm saying, supportively. So I think you're right on point when you put this in there, Mr. Thompson. Anybody would like to speak to that? The fact that it's more deadly to African Americans, probably because healthcare, poverty, things of that nature, a bigger issue.
Absolutely, and no doubt that plays a part in it. A huge part. Access to healthcare has always played a part in worse outcomes for the African American community, and this has been something that's not recent. If I can make a quick plug for a book, I have no tie to it, so I don't get any compensation. But there's a book called Medical Apartheid,
Okay.
and you can find that on Amazon for I think about $12. It's a great read, not a fun read, but it's about basically how white men experimented medically on slaves in the 16th, 17th, and 1800s, and then even into the 20th century. We all know about the the syphilis experiment and all that kind of stuff. So it really talks about why healthcare is so different for minorities than it is for white folks, and how minorities have good reason not to trust healthcare at this point, because it has not been a friend to them for 400 years, over 400 years. So that's a heavy book to read, but it's a good book that just I'll write it in the
Well, the board member, Dr. Robinson, who handles a lot of our media stuff, she already has it in there, so she's right on point. But now listen, Steve and Canel, I'm stressed out. I ain't got no girl. I ain't got nobody I could talk to, and I'm just not functioning right. I mean, mama gone, daddy gone. Who can I talk to? Who can I contact? Give me some resources or something. Who should I reach to? I know I can go to the pastor maybe, but shoot, he might be stressing. So
hold on a second. Before you answer that question, I think this is a good segue to our poll, right? Because
yes.
some of that, let me hit this with this poll real quick. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have 4 questions that's going to pop up right now. I would ask you to answer these questions accordingly, please. And we are launching the poll now. You guys see that? Okay, you have to scroll down. There's 11 of us, so I'll wait till I see everyone. There's 4 questions.
I got a question for question number 1.
Uh-huh.
Do we include ourselves?
Yes, and you can speak to that.
Okay.
Self-care is the best care.
That's right.
So I have a quick question. So the last 2 questions, at my place of business, yes, there is, but I'm a licensed professional, but it's not the same profession. So I answered that accordingly. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So we got 7 out of 11. I think 2 of us can't because we're viewing it, me and Mr. Davis. Just a couple more people and we can move and show our results. Is anybody else still working on it? We got 10 out of 11. I think we got 2 more people we're waiting on. Everybody good? Okay, we're going to end the poll and share the results. So do you care for someone suffering from mental illness? 33% said yes, 67% said no. Is it important as an appearance enhancement professional to have awareness on mental illness signs? And 89% said yes. Are you a licensed professional? 78% said yes. Do you have a resource list of free mental health providers or your place of business? Less than half said yes. And some would say they would love to have it. So I think that's a good transition into the question that was asked about where do I go? And apparently a lot of people don't have this information.
Yeah. So first and foremost, when in doubt, 211. is a great resource in the city of Rochester. They're, what I call them is a great resource to find all your other resources.
Yep.
They can help with, you know,
Everything.
physical health, mental health,
Yep.
you know, food assistance, housing assistance. Go ahead.
Steve, I want to put a pin here. Just, I want to say that we had a 211 presentation on another platform that I am. And one of the things I learned, and I think you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't know if you call a suicide prevention hotline number, that actually is 211 answering on the other end of that call. So
And also, if you know someone who is struggling with homelessness, definitely call 211. That's definitely a good resource for shelters and housing. But not to steal your thunder, Steve. You can definitely go to U of R. They got walk-in clinics at U of R. Strong. You got the Catholic Family Center downtown right here. If you're downtown, you can send you yourself, the clients that you see, anybody. They're all free walk-ins. You can go there and get mental health treatment, man. Let me say anybody, Steve.
Now, let me say, because this is exactly why the U.P.B.C.A. wanted to have this discussion, because when there's nobody else you can go to your barber, you can go to your stylist, and we have interaction with these people on a regular basis. That's why I think that it's important. We're in a personal relationship with people. People come in the barbershop, beauty salon, your place of business. If they have trust in you, they tell you about their family. They tell you about their relationship drama. They tell you about career stuff, educational. They tell us everything. And we must have a sense of confidentiality about ourselves. But some of the things we got to do, we literally become therapists. We are literally therapists to a whole bunch of people, and we're not even getting that therapist money.
Right.
But because we should have empathy, because we should be encouraging, and because people really just need validation sometimes. Or they might just need a listening ear. So that's why the U.P.B.C.A. thought that it was important, and I think I can speak freely on that, thought it was important that we cover this topic on mental health and substance abuse. We see it weekly, daily, right here in our own places of business, and I think that we need to make sure that we see the signs, some of the things Mr. Steve gave us and Mr. Ferguson. We got to make sure that we can recognize the signs and address it, because surely we don't want anything to happen to anybody in our care. Okay, so I think that this is a viable subject that we should, as professionals, licensed professionals, need to make sure that we are up to date on all information, on all skill sets that we need to have to deal with somebody. Because if Daniel Pruitt would have came in my place, you know what I'm saying? Am I equipped to help him? Do I know the things to say? Do I know how to diffuse a situation? You know what I'm saying? And we have people that come in substance abused, overdone in our shops and in our places of business on a daily basis. So let's make sure that we are educated. Are there any questions? We have a few more minutes here. Are there any questions for either Steve or Mr. Ferguson, or do you have something that you want to share with us? We have a few more minutes here, Mr. Lightfoot. I know we're trying to stay within time frame. We have a few more minutes. I think we have about seven minutes. Yes, Ms. Robinson, Dr. Robinson.
I would just like for the guest speakers to please touch a little bit on, I made a quick funny joke, but there are some people that take on a lot of responsibility. They take on a lot of other practices. So there was a phrase that said self-care. If they could just touch a little bit on that, some self-care things that we can do as professionals in the professional industry to help us with self-care, or what people can do for self-care.
Absolutely. Self-care is absolutely paramount right now for everybody, especially when you're people like you who are caring for other people. Like Wade said, you become therapists, you become kind of guardians of people, and so you got to make sure you're taking care of yourself. One of those things that I make sure that I do is I'm setting boundaries. You know, I would love to help everybody. I would love to do everything I can for everybody, but there's only 24 hours in a day, and I only have so much energy, and I have a family too. So I've got to set those boundaries and say, you know, this is as much as I can do for you. And I can refer you to somebody else, or, you know, give them more resources. But boundaries, I think, are really key in self-care. Also, if you want to, a really good resource for this, UB has a free website. Yeah, I think if you type in UB, I could probably put it in the chat maybe, UB self-care into Google. They have an entire resource. It's all completely free. And they have activities you can do for self-care. They have self-care assessments, so you can kind of see where you fall on the self-care scale. And these are things that you can do for yourself, and even you could have in your shops. You know, you can print them out. They're all, you know, no copyright or anything, so you can print them out and just have them, you know, available if somebody wants to take one with them. They have emergency self-care plans, all that kind of stuff.
Great.
Yes.
Is that good, Dr. Robinson? Mr. Ferguson, you got something?
Yeah, you could do simple stuff to take care of yourself, man. Take walks. Take walks with the family. Again, setting boundaries is really good. It's really important because you'll be surprised how deep you can get into a situation with a client, and it can take over your entire night. So
Mm.
you keep doing that and keep doing that, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get burned out really fast. So definitely set boundaries. That's definitely good, Mr. Steven. But yeah, take one with the family, man. Hang out with your friends, see your families, especially now in COVID time. Be careful, but you need that people interaction, especially people you're close with, people who you grew up with. You need that interaction. We're humans. That's how we were designed. That's what we're designed to do. We need to interact. That's one of the best self-care there is, because your family is always number one. So definitely your family, help, just take walks with them, talk to them, take little trips, dinners, make a barbecue in the backyard, something. Just do something that's going to do good for you and better enable you to be at one with your family, and give your mind, go to bed early. No,
Mm.
one of the hardest thing for me is to sleep on time. I don't know if there's an on time. So Willie, is there an on time for sleep? I don't know. But for me, I had to really do a serious self-care for myself, because I always find myself falling asleep 12, 1 o'clock. And it was not good because I'm getting up groggy. Mind didn't get enough sleep. I'm just like a zombie in the morning. So that's another self-care you could do, man. Go to bed early. Eat right. Watch your intake, your carbs, your fats, all that stuff. Exercise. Take walks around the Cobb's Hill down up there. Go around and walk before it gets too cold and stuff like that. Go outside, breathe in some air, relax your mind. Just empty your mind for 30 minutes, 60 minutes. Listen to some nice relaxing jazz music on your drive home from work. Stuff like that. It's one thing I always say to my
I
wife.
got you, Mr. Mons.
And wait, you hear me say this too. When I walk out this building, man, everything stays behind me. I don't care. I don't want to
Mhm.
hear it. I'll come see it tomorrow, man. I'm walking out. I'm going home. I need to dump everything and leave my mind here as I'm going home to my family, and I can't bring that stuff with me. So it's just how these are some of the things that you could do to get your mind.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Mr. Mons, come on, unmute yourself. You had your hand up?
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Mhm.
I don't think Mr. Willie Lightfoot sleeps myself. He wears so many hats. I just want to say that I think all of the members of the U.P.B.C.A. should be open to the idea of just reaching out to each other. Just a couple of days ago, I reached out to Mr. Lightfoot just to say, hey, how you doing? I know that he wears a lot of different hats, and I think as members of this organization, we should feel comfortable with that. I know a few people personally, but my phone line will be open to every member that's a part of our organization, just to have a conversation about how your day was going, or like Wade said, we deal with a lot of different things coming into the barbershop because our clients just they open up the door, and next thing you know, you're trying to help them cycle through the different issues that they're going through. So I think we should help each other, support each other, and just pick up the phone every now and again as members of the U.P.B.C.A.
Very, very good suggestion. Listen, for myself though, I know, and this is going to be real short because I want to make sure I watch the time and be obedient. My biggest self-care thing I've done since we've been back is going by appointments. I'm like, pack them in, hit you up, get you out. I'm doing 15, 20-minute haircuts and lacing them. And, but you know what? That was wearing me down. And it really took my wife to really tell me, yo, this is good for you. Now I have more time. I'm in control of my time. I'm not stressing. The shop not full. I told this person to come and forgot. So, that self-care is very important. Kennel, I have a brother-in-law that go to bed at 6. My wife like to try to be in bed by 10. I never make it. But, I'll fall asleep on the couch. But, that is important, making sure that we get our rest.
Yeah.
Let's take care of ourselves because we can't help anybody if we're not all right.
Right.
I learned that a long time ago. If you're not okay, you can't help nobody. I really enjoyed this. Anybody have anything else? Any more questions? Anything pressing? Jonathan.
Yeah, just one more quick question. Mr. Mons, I actually wholeheartedly agree with you on that because that's my brother. I can barely get a hold of him. But what I would like to say is, Steve, are you a North Campus guy or South Campus guy? Because I've got my degrees from UB. So give me a second on that. Also, too, everything we do, and so in my business and what we do, we love having action plans and goals on what's next. So it is great to sit and talk about change. It's great to sit and talk about like what we need to do, but like what is our action plan? What's our game plan? And what are we doing on paper beyond this meeting? So that's something that I would like to just quickly address. Like what is going to happen next, or what is each of us going to do, or what is the group going to do as a whole to bring the conversation forward?
While he's thinking of that, while he's thinking, Jonathan, and he's the professional, I really want him, but I want him to get time to get his thoughts together. But for us in that the U.P.B.C.A. is, we got to start right in our shops by being observant, being informative, and being helpful. We could do that. I mean, anytime the city, the mayor, anybody want to get anything done, get information out, the first group of people that they come to is barbershops and beauty salons, because they know we at the grassroots and we're in the midst of those that's being affected by the things that they trying to put in place. So that's one thing that I'm just encouraging all my barber stylists, nail techs, all those professionals. I'm encouraging them to start right in their shop with observance, giving out information, and having empathy, having a listening ear, those type of things. But yes, go ahead, Mr. Steve.
First, I'm a no campus guy because I'm actually completely online. So,
What?
yeah, so no campus there. But
Okay.
I like what Mr. Davis said. I also really love what Mr. Mon said about keeping this kind of tight knit group together, checking on each other, having regular meetings together during this time to just kind of, maybe not even have an agenda of anything to talk about, just have it be, let's get together and let's just chat and see what comes up. Let's check on each other. Let's see how let's encourage each other with self-care. One thing that you could do is meet every week or every other week and say, what'd you do for self-care this week? That's a really big encouragement to keep up with that kind of self-care. But yeah, just I think keeping up with these types of meetings, but not always needing maybe a subject or an agenda, but just maybe to to be together and to share in everything that you're doing.
Thank
Exactly.
you. Mr. President.
Yeah, hey, good stuff. Great conversation. I would just add, I think you're right, Steve. It's not always necessarily, but I understand because I'm one of those step-driven people, as my brother knows, that likes to move to the next step. But I think by us just starting this conversation and having these conversations on a consistent basis, when there was no space to have these conversations that we were aware of, by itself is actually impactful. And the fact that we're live streaming on YouTube and we're able to share these conversations on multiple platforms is the next step of making the conversation go farther than just the 13 people on this call. So I think the next step is for us to do some of these things that we're talking about doing, which is self-caring for ourselves as well as for our clients and or for our overall community, and then sharing the information and opening up the door to have these conversations in other spaces so that others can begin to have the healing and begin to have the information, because we understand that people perish for the lack of knowledge. So the more that we give people knowledge and information, the more healthier that we hope that they can become, and the better of their quality of life that we hope to help them to achieve. So again, we are just trying to raise awareness, but we're also trying to be more impactful within our industry in a more collective way by working together. Part of our name is United Professional Barbers and Cosmetologists. So the key word there is united. So we're more stronger together than we are apart. So oftentimes people say, "Oh, you can't get a certain amount of people in the room and they can't work together." Well, we've proven that wrong. We've been working together for a long time, created an organization that people say couldn't have been done. We are reaching people in ways that we didn't think we could reach them. And to your point, Steve, and to Mr. Ferguson, this group, we meet twice a month, sometimes more. When the pandemic was happening, we were meeting weekly to self-care and to self-check with one another and our families, because we understood the importance of how serious this was. And as time began to open up and as our shops begin to open, we met a little less, but we still meet once a month for our regular board meetings, and then we meet for our shop talk, which we've been doing since February. We've been having these conversations on a wealth of different topics. We've had the mayor, we had the county executive, we helped the entire industry through the state of New York get themselves together and get on unemployment and lobby for our industry to close safely and for us to open safely, and providing PPE and all of the things. We've done this consistently for this community in the whole state of New York throughout this entire pandemic. So we've definitely moved the needle forward, not beyond just conversation, but we've helped a lot of people stabilize their homes, their businesses, their families, and with people like Mr. Fugel and Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Davis and all the others who've been diligently supportive of what we're doing, have been helping us to do that. So I would say the next steps would be for us to take care of ourselves, for us to share this information with other people so that it can be helpful for them and their families, and for us to continue the conversations in our shops and salons. And hopefully, if you even feel more aggressive and you want to get more deeper and more in the weeds, I would say start putting together a little list that you can pass out to your clients, a resource list, starting with 211 and other local resources that may be around your neighborhood. Call 211 and see if they can give you a few names of agencies around your shops of information and things that you're hearing people saying in your shops that they may need. And you could begin to start passing out that information to your clients. So that's another next step that can be more conversation, but actually moving into action. You can create a survey in your shop and in your salons. Like we did a poll today. You can create a very simple survey to ask, have you checked, do you know what mental health things are, or some of the signs and symptoms? Do you know where to go to get help for mental health? Do you have mental health individuals that you're taking care of, maybe to include yourself? Are you medicated for mental health? Do you take your medications? You know what I mean? How often do you have issues with healthcare and getting your medication? These are things that you can do in your own shop and salon to take it, like my brother was saying, a step further. Like, what's the action plan? What's the next step? Those are just a few ideas that I present to people for consideration as to the next step. But I have to say that I am guilty of taking care of everybody else except for myself. That you know, I'm one of those that Superman saved the world and end up kryptonite and can't even move. But thank God that I'm learning what you said, Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Fugel, about the boundaries. I'm learning about these boundaries and I'm setting them. And that can be a difficult thing to do when you've been so accessible to folks, is to set those boundaries because people get upset. But that's what something you just have to work through. And so I'm working through that. And others, I'm sure, are working through their own boundaries and their own things that they have to work through for their self-care. But I appreciate the conversation. I'm so grateful and thankful for all of you, and Wade for guest hosting this, and for all of you who attended and who are listening. And I'm grateful for Mr. Fugel and Mr. Ferguson, and I appreciate all of that you've had to share with us this evening. And thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was great to be here. I appreciate all of you and all that you do for your communities.
Thank you very much. Next time.
So listen, I want to just say in closing before I let everybody go, listen, U.P.B.C.A, we're all about advocacy, we're all about education, and we're all about community. We have a small fee. We're going to encourage you to go to our website, UPBCA.org. And check out what we're about. The link to join is there, and you can keep abreast of what we do. Please join so that we might be able to get our newsletter out to you and other pertinent information on events such as this. Thank you again, Mr. Ferguson. Thank you again, Ms. Fugel. I'll see you guys in the building. Right. Congratulations to you, Mr. Mons, on that bomb shop. I'm going to get over there, man. But congratulations. He just opened up a shop. So, you know, I see a few bald heads in here. Too many, yo, you can't get too many off of this.